Suicide Awareness Day is Tuesday, the 10th of September. And we want to talk about this because I've interviewed this young lady, Katrina'S, a number of times, and she's an advocate for helping people with mental health and awareness of their mental health. And we want to talk about the 5 stages of grief. But before that, we want to talk about your story. And I think this is the first time that you've shared this story. So I just want to acknowledge your courage.
Thanks.
Where would you like to start?
About 7 or 8 years ago, I was involved in a home invasion, and it was intense. And the police came, and it was And then all of a sudden, when we went to do more about it, the police said there's no record of it. There was nothing reported as far as they knew. There was nothing happened that night in that area. And so it took about 2 months to put the case together, and then it was a very lengthy court thing that went on for about 3 years, which created a lot of insecurity in my life. I couldn't have a shower without somebody else in the bathroom with me. I couldn't go to bed, sleep at night. I couldn't hear loud noises. I'd jump out of my skin. I thought I was going to get attacked, or I was going to get more injured.
So what happened during this home invasion?
So some boys knocked at the door. An incident happened. The boys knocked at the door, and I didn't really know what was going on. I'd kind of just woken up to it, and all of a sudden there's a big fight and punches are being thrown, and it was all quite devastating, really. And they said that we had weapons, which we didn't, and that even created even more issues and problems due to the fact of that you were like, this could have got so serious, even though people coming into your house isn't serious enough, and being hit as a woman. And I can't really remember much of it. I just remember being hit and just kind of coming to and just seeing this big fight happening. And anyway, it just tore me apart. I just had no trust. I couldn't drink anymore. I didn't go out. I couldn't be around men that were drinking because it was unpredictable. A couple of times I created fights with men to prove that I was stronger. It just ruined my life. And at one stage I went to the doctor and spoke to her, not necessarily about the full extent of what happened. And she put me on antidepressants and said, we'll see you in a couple of weeks and see how you're going. Well, that just didn't help. It just escalated from there with the suicidal thoughts, getting called by the police, having anxiety, having to go in, being interrogated, having to see these people all the time, say who they were, they're denying that they did it, then having to go into court, seeing them all the time. I had to move away from Auckland, so I moved to the Hawke's Bay to try and get away from the constant dread feeling of being in Auckland and seeing them or coming across them or anything like that. So it crushed my life, and the suicidal thoughts just got worse and worse, and I took all of the antidepressants at one time, and whatever happened, somebody came unexpectedly to my house and I spat them all out really quickly. They had no idea what had just happened. They just thought I was a little bit out of it. And the next day I kind of was like, wow, last night could have been like the end of it. And then I went on to doing suicide prevention more with Lifeline. I became a facilitator of suicide intervention prevention. I did a solution-focused suicide intervention to try and find some ease for myself of these suicidal thoughts, because the noise inside your head, it was so painful and it was so loud, and you were just like, I can't tell anyone about these thoughts. I can't tell anyone about the noise in my head, because people would either try and put me on prescription medication or they'll try and get me to talk, and I just really wanted it to go away, and I thought the only way of getting all of this to go away was to end it all. And the voices were so harsh and so mean.
What were those voices saying?
Just kill yourself. You're not worth it. You're a piece of shit. You'll never get any further than this. Just die. Nobody loves you.
And how did that affect people around you?
Big time. I couldn't have relationships with men because I was just so fearful of them. I would push them away all the time. In Hawke's Bay, I lived with a couple of guys, and I used to always lock doors, so whenever they used to walk out, I'd lock it behind them, and they used to be like, this is getting ridiculous, and I just wouldn't talk about it. And then and it just got to a point where I was just like, it's got to stop. And
so take us back to the court case. What happened during that process?
During the court case, it was just consistently phone calls, going to court, seeing these people saying that, we have to push the court date back to this. The police, it was just getting grueling.
Give us a sense of time. So from when it happened to the court case, what was the period of time?
About 3 years.
3 years?
Yep. 3 years. And they got let off due to them having a business, and they couldn't go international if they had grievous bodily harm on them, and so they denied ever hitting women, and there was just I had to find that peace for myself. And last year I came across them in Parnell when I was working, and I thought that I'd come to acceptance with the situation 7 to 8 years later, and I realised that at that point I did not. I hadn't at all. And
so what happened?
They pretty much were standing in front of me, and their work truck was beside me, and they just looked at me like they had no idea who I was, and they said hello, and I just wanted to say, how can you be like this? You ruined my life. I wanted to smash up their car and go berserk, but I didn't particularly want to be arrested, and I didn't particularly want to create a scene that was unnecessary due to my own grief and my own loss of things that had happened to me.
So how did you get past that acceptance? Or how did you get to that, 7, 8 years later now from the initial incident?
Yeah.
How do you move forward?
I made a choice in my head very quickly, was either to make a scene or it was to go to the bathroom and have a cry. And so I chose to go to the bathroom and have a cry. And then I just went, this can't keep going on like this. It's got to stop. And I just went, okay, we've got to come to some acceptance with it, because I'm sure that it just had to stop, and my life just couldn't carry on the way it was. And the suicidal thoughts did stop, because I chose that I was going to live, and that's how I got into the energy healing side of things as well, to help myself to really get through those past stories that I was holding on to so much of, like it was their fault and blame. But I just had to go, okay, this has happened, now I need to move on, I need to move forward.
So fast forward to now, what is it that Katrina North can do now, or to say to people watching this video around suicide prevention or suicide awareness? What is it that you would say to people looking and hearing your story today?
I would say know that this isn't going to last forever. It's a thought that that you have. Please reach out, talk to people. There are people that can help you. Tell your story, get it out, and just allow people just to walk the path with you. And if you want people to say anything, please say, or otherwise sometimes do say, please can you just listen, because people are there and they want to save you, and sometimes that's the worst thing to do, because you do shut down if somebody interjects or interrupts you and wants to save you. You stop and you just go, I can't tell this person anymore.